Hi everyone, Dr. Gillespie here to show you how to create an interactive graphic organizer using Microsoft Word. So an interactive graphic organizer is just an instructional tool or even an assessment tool that you can use with students. So a teacher can use it to they can project it and have students show their understanding by manipulating it. The teacher can manipulate it and move things around or add things to it. And the students can also manipulate it as well. So you could also send it out using one of the learning management systems at your school. And the students can manipulate it and send it back to you either through the learning management system, email, they can airdrop it to you. There's many different ways that students can show their understanding. So instead of printing out graphic organizers or having students draw their graphic organizers, you could just disperse these using your learning management systems. So this interactive graphic organizer that you see before you is one that I created on the states of matter. So at the top, you notice that there's a title, and then there's a direction section that tells the students what to do. One of the most important things on any type of assessment that you do or any type of activity is that you have really clear directions. So the students are to drag the objects at the bottom of the page into its state of matter. And then after you have sorted the objects, they're to write an explanation about why they moved each object into that state of matter. And also to make sure that they explain why each object is a solid, a liquid, or a gas. And using Microsoft for this, they can sort, and then they could go down to the next page and they could insert a page, and then they could type their answers, and then they could send it to the teacher. So they can all do these on their one-to-one devices or on a classroom computer or however that you need it to be done. So you're going to notice that there is some type of organizer in the back for them. Well, first off, when I click on this organizer, you're going to notice that it does not move. It is there, it is not moving, which is exactly what we want when we make an interactive graphic organizer, because there's nothing worse than dragging something or trying to type into something and your graphic organizer moving. So I'm going to show you how to make sure that that happens. So down here, you're going to notice that there's pictures, and I can move these pictures however I want, and I can move them into their state of matter. So here's my spoon, and if I move it up into solid, you can see that it goes there. And then here's my brick. I can move it, and my smoke, and my ice cube. And I can move all of these things into their state of matter. Now, to create one, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to have some sort of idea in mind. You're going to have an objective or a standard in mind to do this activity and to create this interactive graphic organizer. So for this one, it's very clear that they are classifying objects into their states of matter and justifying why they put what they did there. So the first thing you're going to want to do is come up with an idea. So I'm going to create another interactive graphic organizer with you, and this one is going to be completely blank, except for the directions that I put at the top, just to kind of give my idea, to kind of hash out my idea a little bit more. So my directions at this time that I'm going to work on with my students, with my focus, is to match the world religion symbols to their definition. So this is obviously a social studies lesson. So I want them to identify the world religion symbols and their definition so that they understand when they see it, when they're reading, or when they're looking at a map and there's a religion symbol on there, that they can identify what that means. So I'm going to want to find world religion symbols and definitions to use for this activity. Well, thinking about this activity, there's a couple of things that I could do. Well, one, I could have them do a T-chart. Or I could make a table of so many world religions where the symbol's on one side and then they move the definitions up. Or I could have a T-chart where they move the symbol and then they move the definition. So there's no right or wrong here. It just depends on what I want to do. Now, before we go into that, let's think about what we need to do just to kind of get started on our interactive graphic organizer. Well, one, I have my directions, so I kind of have what it is I want them to do. So the other thing that I'm going to want to do is that you'll notice that when I'm down here, I have the cursor but when I come up here, I have like a little page symbol. Well, if I double click on that, that's going to open up my header bar, which is a really nice place for you to put your title. So I'm going to go ahead and title my interactive graphic organizer World Religion Symbol Sort. And then I'm going to hit close, and you're going to notice that it's up there, and that makes it on the top of every single page. Now, if I didn't want it at the top of every single page, I could go back in here and click, and I could hit this button that says different first page, and it would just be on the first page instead. But it does depend on where you put it at first. So if you're on a second page and you click that button, it's going to delete your first page. So just make sure that you have it clicked on the page that you want it. So you could see when I clicked it, it went away. So what you could do with that is you can just copy and paste it, and then hit that button and then paste it back in. So now I can hit close, and now that's just going to show up on my first page. So to get started with this, the way to get your interactive graphic organizer into your document is you're going to want to go to Design, and then you're going to want to go to this, and you're going to want to go to this function called Watermark. So when you click on Watermark, you're going to notice that it pops up, and the first thing it says is no watermark. Watermark is a function where it puts text in the background of whatever it is that you're writing. So if you wanted to put a picture in the background, you could do that. If you wanted to put a text in the background, you could do that. And it would just be in the back of whatever it is that you're writing. So for an interactive graphic organizer, you're going to want to insert a picture. So you're going to want to go to Picture. But we don't have a picture right now, so it's kind of hard for us to insert a picture when we don't have a picture. So what we want to do with this is we're going to want to go to Google. We're going to want to go and see in our internet browser all about what we could use for our interactive graphic organizer. So when I was searching ideas, I found this really nice chart that had the symbols and had a really nice definition under there that I may want to use for my interactive graphic organizer. So what I can do with this is if I want to use this in some way, or I want to take parts of it, I could go to View Image, and then I could right click on it, and I can save the image as, and I could put it on my desktop. I like to put everything on my desktop at the beginning, and then I move it into folders when I get finished with it. But you can do it however you like. So that might be something that I want to use. So I have that. And then I also said earlier that I could either use a T-chart or I could use a table. It just kind of depended on what I wanted to do. So earlier, I went and I searched blank T-charts. You can find blank Venn diagrams, blank sequencing charts. There are so many different templates out there that you can find. So I just clicked on this one. I thought it looked pretty good. And then I went to View Image. So what I could do again is I could right click on it, and I could save the image as, and I could put that on my desktop. Or if you want to screenshot, you could also screenshot. So on a Mac, screenshot is Command-Shift-4 to be able to do the toggle view where you can kind of grab the part that you want. So if I don't want the title and I just want the T-chart part, I can take that and it's going to take a screenshot of it, and it's going to put it on my desktop automatically. Now, if you are not using a Mac, there are sites out there that explain to you how to do screenshots on a PC. So using the print screen function and so forth. So you can go and look for that a little bit more as you need, because all computers are a little bit different. So if you want to use a screenshot, you go use the one that is correct for your device. So going back to so the first thing that we want to do is we want to find things that we can use for our interactive graphic organizer, whether it be pictures, whether it be a blank template of a graphic organizer, and so forth. So now if I go back into Microsoft Word, I can go back into the design function and watermark, and I can select picture, and I can go back and I can grab that T-chart that I put on my desktop. So if I come down here and I look, which is right there, I want the one that does not have the words. Now, you're going to notice that there's a couple of different functions here. There's one that says auto scale, which is going just to put it in the page and it's just going to fit. Something that you will want to do is you're going to want to take that check off of washout. Washout's going to make it very, very bland looking. You're not going to be able to see it. It's going to look like it's washed out. So after you hit that button, you just hit OK. And you're going to have your T-chart in the background. So my T-chart is now there. So now what I could do is I could write over this and have a text box right there over the picture if I wanted that said world religion symbols. And then on the other side, I could have one that says definitions. So then I could create the symbol box, the symbols, and put them on one side, and the definitions, I could have them down at the bottom and then they could drag them up into there. Or I could make my own chart. It just kind of depends on what I want to do. So if you don't like the way that your chart looks, sometimes the pictures are not very good. You can also create a photo in a different way. So you could come up here to File and you could open a new document as well. So something you could do is you could go to Insert and you could go to Smart Art if you wanted to. So if you had a list, you were doing sequencing or something like that, you could always use one of these and you could go ahead and type your information into it. Then you could take a picture of what you wanted or however you wanted to, using screenshot or using your Adobe. So there's lots of different things in here that you could do. Or, like I said, I could also make a table. So maybe I have 6 world religions that I'm going to focus on at that moment. So what I could do is I could insert right here and I could say world religion symbols. And then over here I could have definition. I could insert my pictures into these boxes. And then I could create a picture out of that to put in the watermark. So to do that, something that I could do is I could come over here and I could beg, borrow, and steal from this open source document right here. So if I wanted this symbol right here, I could come into, this is a Mac program, I could open up this cross and come over here and I could copy and paste it in. Now, if you are a PC user, again, there's different ways of doing this on a PC as compared to a Mac. So I'm going to put this link up for you that shows you how you can crop your images using a PC. And there's multiple programs in PC that can be used for this. And I will put that up for you to access as well. So like I was saying, you can beg, borrow, and steal pictures from open source documents that are used in Google Photos or Google Images. So I'm just going to take all the symbols from here and I'm going to put them over into my chart. And I'm going to pause it for just a minute to make this go a little bit quicker so you don't have to watch me do all these steps right here. So I just got done finishing copying and pasting over my symbols into my table. So now I'm going to go ahead and save my table. And I'm going to go ahead and also modify my table just a little bit so that it's a little bit easier to read and for students to drag their pictures into in just a minute. So I'm going to make my headers a little bigger so I can do all those things that we were practicing when we were doing our Microsoft Word practice. You can also highlight your pictures and make them go in the middle if you want to, however you want to organize it and make it aesthetically pleasing to see. And you can also fix your tables as well to where they're a little bit more symmetrical looking as well. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to File. And also, when we were practicing with our Microsoft Office, I had you practicing saving your Microsoft Word documents into different formats. So if you come up to File and you go to Save, you're going to notice that you can save your document into many, many different formats. Well, you're going to notice that picture is not there, and picture is one of the only things that you can put as a watermark into the background. There is a way around that, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you come down to PDF, you can save it as a PDF. And again, I like to put things on my desktop and then put them into folders later so I know exactly where it's going. So now that I have my PDF, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open it up. Now in here, what I can do is one that's really big for me to see. So I'm going to zoom out so I can see it a little bit better. And then up here at the top, there's a couple of different functions that you can do. Well, one, under Edit, there's this thing called Snapshot. So you can snapshot. You can also go to Tools. So if you needed to, like I was saying, you can go under Tools and you can go to Edit PDF if you need to, but you don't necessarily have to unless you had an error in there. But I find it's easier just to go back into Microsoft, fix your error, and then go back into PDF. So since it's a PDF in general, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to File, and then you're going to want to go to Export To. Under Export To, you're going to notice that there is Image, and you can save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And you're going to notice that mine says that I need to buy or I need to activate. So if you don't have Adobe, what you can also do is you can go into Pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this one out. And I'm going to right click on it. And this is for Mac only. Only Mac has Preview. So under Preview, and on PCs you have an Adobe and you have a couple other things that you can use and do a lot of similar things like we're doing. So what you can go to now is you can go to File up here at the top, and then you can export it as well. And you can change it to a JPEG file. Now, Preview is free on Mac computers. Adobe you do have to buy, but there is free trials of Adobe that you can use. So now you're going to notice that I have a JPEG here. So now I can go back into my World Religion Symbols, and I can come back up here to my design since I didn't really like my watermark, and I could change my watermark to my new picture that I just made. So I can come over here and find what I just made, which is right here, and I can insert it. Remember, I want the washout. And if you notice behind here, it has text on the page that isn't there, and you can tell that it's kind of small. So I may want to make it bigger, but that's way too big. So I can look at it at 100%. I can do it as 50%. 50% looks pretty good, but I can also change it here as well. Oh, I hit enter, so let me go back in and play with that again. So 70 is also a little bit too big, so maybe just keeping it at 60, and then we can hit enter and see what it looks like. So 60 is a little bit too big too. So you can look at it and you can change the sizing of it all that you need to until it fits the way that you want it to fit. So 50 is even a little bit too big because it went over my directions, so maybe I want to go to 40 as my sizing. And 40 is a little bit too small, so then maybe 45. So you can play with it until it looks right for you, and that looks pretty good. So now I have my symbols, and I have my sort, and now I can make my little definition text boxes so that they can drag and drop it to where I want it to go. So I'm going to save it, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Insert. And when I go to Insert, I'm going to come over here to Text Box, and I can draw a text box wherever I want it. And now I can go and I can copy and paste different things so that I can make my definitions. I can come up here to the top and I can put borders around it, or I can make it a certain color if I want it to be, so that students can see that that's an individual text box. So I'm going to make mine gray for the time being, and I'm going to go and copy and paste some of the definitions over from my charts that I had before. So I just found this really nice chart that I can use to copy and paste over into my interactive graphic organizer. So now what I can do is I can come over here and I can make my text box again like I had. So I can go to Insert like I did before, and it's on the small screen. So if you don't see all of your functions at the top, just make sure you make your screen big. So I can go to Text Box. I can draw what type of box I want. And my box just disappeared. Let's try that again. Sometimes that happens even to the best of us. So you can copy and paste into your text box, and you can make your text box bigger if you need to, and all of that. And you can do that for each of your things that you want your students to sort. So now when they take it, we can test to see if it would actually move to where it needs to go. So they can actually move them, and you notice again that the background, their organizer does not move. Now, if you didn't want them to drag and drop anything into here, you could still make this interactive. So what you could do is you could give the students a little bit more direction. So you could have them make text boxes to where they write their notes into it. So for instance, they can go to Insert and they could go to Text Box. So maybe this is a interactive notes that you want them to take, especially in social studies and science in high school and secondary. You have them take a lot of notes. So you could give them a graphic organizer to help them with their notes. And then they could go in and they could put text boxes and they could type in their notes, and they could have it saved on their device. They could also send it to you. And if you use things like Apple Classroom, you can actually monitor your students taking notes on their devices, especially if you have iPads. It doesn't work as much with the iBooks or the MacBook Pros, but it does with the iPads. So that was an overview of how to make interactive graphic organizers using Microsoft Word. So I want you to be creative when you're making your interactive graphic organizers. Make it age appropriate for your major and what you're working on and your subject area if you are subject specific. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I'll be glad to help you out.